All right. Hey, everybody. I'm here with the judge, Brian Parliament. Tonight, we're going to get to know him and see what he's all about. All right,
Hey.
Brian. So, for everyone who doesn't know, where are you from? What club do you arm wrestle out of?
Well, I live in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and I train in Red Deer, Alberta, Canada, with the Red Deer team. I started arm wrestling there. I've basically been pulling about 3 years now. Feels like a lifetime because I just made it my life since I got into the sport. So
Yeah.
I pretty much just live, eat, and breathe and shit arm wrestling. So
And you haven't been in the sport that long, right?
no, not that long. I've only been competing 2.5 years, but I mean, I would imagine I'm over probably about 25 tournaments or more, and I've had 7 super matches now.
7.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and I've lost two super matches, so 5-2.
Yeah. Despite the time in the sport, you're a very strong, like I would say that you're ahead of the average peer by, a good margin for the same amount of time frame. And do you think, is there a reason for that you think? Is it because some part of your background or genetics, or what do you think gives you that little bit of edge versus people with that same amount of time in?
It's passion. It's passion. I mean, like a lot of guys that get into the sport, they do it for hobby, right, at first. And some guys get hurt or there's a lot of pain, so they don't do it often. I kind of got into it and, well, I ripped my left bicep tendon in the first 2 months, I believe. I had a 47% tear. And my right, I beat up. I had a pec tear, and I broke my this finger in my second
During an
super
arm
match.
wrestling match?
Yeah, during an arm wrestling match. Yeah.
Wow.
I slammed him, and then I went like this, and then he slipped, and my finger smacked the table.
Oh, no. Those
I
hurt
went on.
so bad.
Yeah, I went on. I won the match, so, and that was early on. I think round 2 that happened. But
But funny enough, I broke a toe arm wrestling.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
arm wrestling Dalton, actually, and I was just kind of touching styles, had my back leg wedged up on the corner of the table, and I was just pushing as hard as I could, and then he just let go all of a sudden, and I just launched myself across the room, and I put my foot out to catch myself and felt it right away. Yeah, and
Yeah,
it,
that
yeah,
was funny, eh? But no, basically, like when I've been so like even when I went to Arms again, they were like, "You've only been pulling like 2.5 years." Like, what do you mean?
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, you know what? I bet you any money I probably consumed about 10 years. Like if the average arm wrestler was, just being average, I probably consumed 10 years arm wrestling in 2.5 years. So basically every day I watch matches, videos, shorts. I mean,
Yes.
my whole day is spent watching arm wrestling, right? And analyzing matches. I'm fascinated by arm wrestling so much that even like any match I see, I remember all of it. I remember like how they pulled. I noticed a little, I don't know. It's like OCD
Mhm.
a little bit, So
I
I think,
totally get that.
yeah, so I think that's why I kind of, a lot of people are fooled by how long I've been pulling. Plus, I'm an older guy. I was 43 when I decided to start arm wrestling. So I was like, well, I better get on it, right?
Yeah,
I want
43,
to.
so you're just a little over 45 now?
46 now. Yeah,
46, yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah,
turned.
and see, that's an important thing. A lot of people, just like with any sport or like exercise in general, they get intimidated about starting because they think, they want those perfect conditions when they start. They's like, oh, I got to have my supplements, I got to have my equipment, got to have this and that. But one of the big things too is, like a lot of people, it's like, oh, I'm too old. It's a strength sport, but it's been proven time again. Like some of the best guys out there are, um, getting like you're young for like Monster Michael Todd is about to compete for number 1 in the world, or number 2, I mean, and he's I think close to 60. 55, 58 range, I think.
So
And, Ron Bath, and then our own Jim, the blonde bear, he's in his 70s and still gets, second, third place up at Worlds and the Masters.
Crazy George is in his 70s and he's still killing
Yeah.
everybody.
Is he
So
in your club?
no, he's in an Ontario club, but he comes to Alberta like I don't know why, but he's at
Mhm.
Edmonton club like a lot. I
And
think
is,
his
is
family or
his arm as
daughters
much
there.
of a wall as people say? Like there's
Oh
just
yeah,
not, no pinning him?
I've been able to pull him. Yeah, and it's funny because when you grip up with him, you think this is just a hype. This is just all hype. I could pin this guy, right? And then you
Mhm.
go to pin him, and it doesn't pin. And the more you try, it just does. I actually did get a few on him, but I don't. I think if he didn't really want me to, he wouldn't have let me pin him though.
Right.
So I'm not going to say I pin Crazy George, but he is an encyclopedia though. He's actually one of my favorite arm wrestlers. And I spent a whole practice just me and him pulling pretty much. And I learned more that day than almost any other time in my arm wrestling career so far. And if you ever get a chance to meet him, you could pluck his brain, you'll learn so much. He knows so much. Like, so he's such a good arm wrestler. And it's not just about the King's move. He pulls normal too. Like he's actually one of the, I think he's the best King's mover there is. I don't think there's somebody better than him. And maybe Master from Bulgaria. What's his name?
I know what you're talking about, but I can't think of his name.
It's not coming on.
You hear him a lot in the background of like people talk about him a lot, you know.
He's trains Plamin and Jordan Sonov, and anyway, he's really good. But other than that, Crazy George, I definitely I worship him pretty much. So he's a pretty amazing guy.
Yeah. And outside of arm wrestling, what do you do for a living?
I'm self-employed. I do a lot of bartering. So a lot of my stuff is just buying.
It's a lost art.
Yeah, it is a lost art. Yeah, but no, I buy stuff. I'm a guy that sees value in buying things and then reselling them. So
okay,
I'm just very resourceful. I do own a landscaping company as well, and I owned a line painting business for a while called the Line Guys. But now it's mainly bartering, just like cars, just all kinds of stuff. Just whatever, I go to auctions, I go to state auctions, I do a lot of stuff. Like I'm basically like a real life hustler, you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like it. And does that give you kind of like the flexibility to do what you need to do with arm wrestling? Like you can move things around how you need to. And
that's probably another reason too, because I'm my own boss. So like, and behind me is a huge gym. Like I got everything. I got multiple pulleys, tables. I got a rack. I got everything. So I basically, when I'm at home, and this is my man cave, I live here.
Yeah.
So like,
that's my man cave too. We're going to have to show off our home gym setups.
Yeah. So like, so I basically, I'm like Devon too, where if I walk by the weight, I'll just be like, I'll pick it up and do a set, or you know what I mean? And it's all the time, right? Like I have my workout still, but then I still have my all day, everyday stuff I do too, right? So.
Yeah, see, I can't do it. Like, I'm not one of those people who can just like go in and just move a weight. Like, I have to like kind of like build up, and it's like a mental and like physical. Like, my body just does not. It needs that warm up phase, or else it's not going to perform anywhere near.
Yeah,
maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe I needed to go just try to move something heavy with cold every once in a while to learn that skill. But
see, and I don't arm wrestle good warm. So you know how a lot of guys have to do a good warm up and stuff. I'm actually horrible. If I warm up, I'm worse.
Oh, really?
I'm a guy. I want to go to the table. I just want a little bit of heat in my hand. Like if I'll just grip somebody a little bit, but that's about it.
Is there enough of a gap between you and the guys you're pulling that you're not going to get pushed past like 80% anyway? Or are they?
Yeah. Well, see, there you go, right? Our club, I'm lucky compared to some clubs. See, now there's like a good chunk of the club. If I want, I can just hold them or work and let them work. And I can work on my defensive skills and stuff like that. But there's always stronger guys in the Red Deer Club. Like we have a lot of that. Yeah. So when I want to really, usually by the end of practice, I start pulling the stronger guys. And then I know.
The right guys show up. I bet it can be a pretty deep, deep line up there.
It is. I had a super match with a teammate recently, and it was funny. He's number 2 in our club. So his name's Hugh Nutbrown. Big shout out.
I heard this on the podcast. This is a good story.
Yeah, and he's actually really, really, really good. Like he beat Joe Fox 2 years back. He just doesn't get out of Alberta much, but he's an amazing puller. And I've been kind of in practice, kind of having his number in practice. So I don't know if he's an ego puller, but he was like, right after the one practice where I kind of just like held him, he was like, let's have a match, right? But see, he was worried, but I was actually thinking I was a long shot because I know how good he is. And it really showed the difference between practice pulling and competing. Because even though I owned him on the practice table, when we were competing, he was one step ahead of me, and he took all my power away from me, right?
Yeah, sometimes, Hunter and I spent a good amount of time talking about that the other night. The big thing that so many people get caught up, especially like a lot of the new guys, because, your first couple weeks and even like 2-3 months, you feel pretty weak in comparison to everyone else. And then like once you kind of start, finding your lanes and being able to kind of get in there and stop people and whatever, you start feeling really strong.
Start
And
building.
then, so you show up to your first tournament thinking things are going to happen, and then you learn it's a totally different
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And if you don't get out there and compete live or do ready goes in at least some kind of a pressured situation, you're going to probably be 20% weaker than you're expecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, it's a level thing, right? And I've been talking about it probably on the last 4 podcasts. We start out, we get strong for arm wrestling. We find out where the first year you learn just where you're strong. You learn the lanes, you start adapting, right? And then you learn how to build the strength outside of the table to build those areas. But when you get to the table, as that level of competition goes up, it gets to a point where what really matters is what you get. And the fight starts before the match, like the way you set up at the table. You know what I mean? The grip that you're willing to accept. You know what I mean? Just everything, right? The pressure that you feel. If he's applying a lot of back pressure, okay, what do I do, right? I'm going to go inside then, or I'm slamming sideways. Or, you can't learn that unless you're consistently on the table in a competition setting. Because if not, you'll never learn that. You could be the strongest guy in the practice, but what's it matter if somebody just goes boom and pins you on the, you know what I mean? You'll be like, I didn't even get to do anything, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's really where I'm really pinpointing right now, because that's the levels, right? That really is a lot. Well, I mean, arm wrestling's the levels, but the setup, the go, the feeling, you know what I mean? The knowing the pressures, that's how we get those extra levels once we get to, where we're competing in the pro, I would say.
Yeah, that's why I like to use Devon Larratt as an example, because you see people practice pulling and give him a hard time all the time.
Yeah.
And then you get into a match with him and he's pulling, at the highest levels because he's the best in the world at getting in that setup and taking all your power away.
Yep.
So you could be however much stronger than him, and you're even or even lower, just because he's a master of pulling matches, not just practice pulling.
Yeah.
Starting in a hook and just banging it out until your arms give up, Yeah, so there's never, you can never learn everything, because you're never going to just be pulling the same exact hand every time. The refs, the way they call goes are going to be different.
Yeah, that matters.
Everything.
Their cadence. Yeah, their cadence, everything. Another thing too, you want to get good in arm wrestling too, and you got a small club, but you can go to other clubs, take the time, drive the couple hours some here and there, because Matt even tells us, right? He's like, I want you to pull all the clubs. I want you to pull every hand you can. He goes, and I'm like, well, I'm Red. He goes, yeah, your home. Your home's Red Deer, but go pull everywhere. I've trained with Lethbridge Club, Calgary Club, Airdrie Club, Edmonton Club. Like, I've went all over, trained with all the clubs, because you know what? It helps. Yeah, because you get to feel the different pressures. And then you come across some stuff, and you can work on areas that you can't with the guys that you normally train with, right? Too, yeah. Right? So, I mean, there's a lot of benefits to just gripping up with as many hands as possible. And I think that, Devon's touched, 1 million hands by now.
Oh,
he's traveled everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
they went on those big tours and they went everywhere, yeah.
He came here, when he came here, he came for like 9 days, and he arm wrestled every day. And no word of a lie, we had like 170 people at our club when he showed up.
I can't even imagine that.
He pulled everybody twice without stopping. No, I'm lying. He would go like a half an hour, take a 10-minute break, drink some water and stuff. And then a half hour, it'd be one after another again, pull them.
That's wild.
And it was like 4 hours, 5 hours every night. He'd have like 170 people, and he'd take all their power, all 170 people each night. And then he went to Lethbridge, and then he went to Edmonton Club, and then it was crazy. And like day after day, pulling hundreds of people. Yeah, that was when he was prepping for the first time against Levon. Yeah.
And that, you can tell, once he recovered from that is when he hit his new level. Like, all that damage he occurred, and then once he let his body properly, like, he just started destroying everybody. Like, the only person that beat him was Levon and Gennady. And then Gennady match is controversial.
Because of the foul. But yeah.
But speaking of all that, there's actually one pro here in North America that I think has all the potential in the world, but it's so frustrating because he pulls one person, and I think that's his drawback. Corey West. He pulls Monster Michael Todd, and that's it. Yeah. And he pulls with him well. He's on that same strength plane as Monster Michael Todd, but
Yeah.
because he doesn't pull anybody, I think he's just always surprised every time he gets up on there that the hand is different. It feels different. It's not going the same places. And
That's right.
when
Yeah.
your only training partner is someone who pulls is unorthodox, is MMT, then like, what do
Yeah.
you know?
Well, you think pulling MMT would almost prepare you for anybody. I find with Corey West, I'm a big fan of his. I think
I'm a
it's a
huge
lot of
fan.
it.
That's why I'm
Yeah,
frustrated.
yeah, me too. But I do find he has endurance problems, right? So,
Oh, big time.
yeah, I think if he lost, like, I know he's just a big guy naturally, but I think if he lost 20 kg,
Yeah.
he would still be huge. And I think it would be the difference because a lot
Well,
of
if he
his
got down to
matches,
Gennady size.
yeah, well, look at a lot of Corey's matches. He looks dominant and then he fades, right?
Yeah, he whops them and then he
Yeah,
loses it.
yeah, yeah. So he starts working on that area. I think his luck changes because he's like he's really good and he's so strong, right?
Oh,
So
it was in his
yeah,
last match. I keep forgetting who it was, but like he got completely dominated out of the strap, and then they put the strap on him that first time, and it just looked like he just went
Tobias,
through the guy like yeah,
Tobias, man?
Tobias, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then ever since then, Tobias didn't want that strap
No,
because
no,
yeah,
yeah,
he
that's
felt
right.
that power. So it's it was
Well, you
crazy.
imagine for 200 kg or was he 220
It was
kg?
more. It was over. It was like 205 or something. Yeah.
He's big, man. So you imagine that drag and with his power too. Like I think he benches 600
Yeah.
pounds, 600 pounds or something.
As soon as he sits backwards, all that
Yeah.
back pressure.
Yeah. Like, come on.
Mhm.
Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, yeah, no, that's funny because that's what I was even thinking because I might be, well, I'm going to eventually pull Dustin Finley and Dustin's a heavy boy and he's strong. So,
Man, Dustin, he was the longest segment of my first video because that dude is like truly crazy. I could not believe. I always feel bad because I feel like I get his name wrong, but is it Len Houghton?
Len Houghton.
Len Houghton?
Yeah.
Um,
That
like
was
that
amazing.
guy is so good. And to
Yeah.
beat him like at 5 months or whatever he was at that time in the sport, who does that?
Yeah. Well, I think it was a little like, don't get me wrong. Okay. This is just me picking it
Mm.
apart because I do it. Len owned him. But the thing is Len's old.
Yeah,
And Len hit him so hard and out of position. But you know what? He stopped it, right?
that's
So
what I'm
that's amazing.
saying.
That's amazing,
Yeah,
right? But Len couldn't get back up. So he basically, all he could do was just hang there, right? So Dustin he really, the way he just slowly urged his shoulder forward and then was able to pull through like push through his arm. It was very, very, very good. But I can
so
tell you
impressive.
now, when I pull him, if I blast him, there's not going to be any hanging. It's going to be transition and a follow-up instant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
That was one thing I did talk about with someone else is that I did notice in the match that he wasn't really transitioning. So it made me wonder too if, he heard, hey, you're going to go against this Dustin Finley kid. He's only like 5 months in.
some
And
of
he
it
was
was
just like,
that.
okay, like I'm just going to kind of show up and not really,
Blast him. Yeah,
get in
and just
shape or
blast.
whatever.
Yeah, and that is what happened. Yeah, and I talked to
But
Len.
either
Yeah.
way, the pedigree's there. And that was just super impressive. And
He's impressive. He's impressive.
I'm really excited to see because he's pulling Nathan Johnson. I don't know if you know about
Yeah.
Nathan, but
Yep.
he's
Oh, yeah, I've studied him.
he's his kryptonite in terms of
He's a
style.
crazy hook puller. Like, right in there, man. He's going to be right in there. But, I
Getting
don't know
him
if
was
that's a
one of my
kryptonite.
favorite accomplishments, actually. It might even be what I consider my biggest accomplishment is getting a pin on him. So, yeah.
Did you take his hand? Yeah.
No, we're both hooks, so we just
Oh,
both dived
nice.
right into it. Yep.
Yeah, I never go right into a hook, but who knows? Maybe it's coming up. I don't know. I've been training the hook. I like hooking. I'm just not very. I program. When you program yourself, I'm so programmed to getting hand control that it just doesn't end up in a hook a lot, right?
Yeah.
If you're strong enough to carve my hand in and hook me, well then good. Kudos, man. But normally, I don't think anybody's actually. I think no, I'm lying. Once I got carved and I lost. It was my first super match. I won 3-1, but the second round I got carved in. I got cocky and I got carved in. And as soon as I got carved in, I just slowly got dragged and peeled open, right? And then my wrist has never really been buckled since.
Even though I'm a hook puller, I always tell everyone that if you can pull in a top roll, if that's where you go and that's where you're having success, keep working on that strength because it's way more efficient. It's like I find practices I go where I work my top roll, and even though my top roll is way behind my hook, I will just pull and pull and pull until I can't anymore, but I recover so much faster.
Yep, switching the muscles. You're switching the muscle groups.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Yeah.
when I pull in a hook, even if I only pull twice, like 2 hard pulls and then just practicing after that,
Yeah, elbow
um,
pain.
like 2 or 3 days where I can't really do much of anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. But you know what? Like, because I know probably a little bit about what you're doing in training, you should top row more. Because you know what? You'd be amazed at how strong your hand is now. Like, do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, if you got used to that, because you're doing a lot of sand. I know it's probably more customized for you, but Sandra's training, it made my hand and wrist steel. Like
See,
steel.
my problem is that my hand is very like it's extremely thick, but it's
Yeah.
very small.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I um, there's been girls who've come to our club that have the same size, like in terms of finger lengths and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, Now my hand's like triple as thick because it's like everyone tells me it feels like holding like onto a golf ball or something. But
Yeah, that's what I get.
um,
That's what I get.
yeah, it's just not. So I can't really get a good. So I have to dive in. If I try to, I just don't have enough hand. Um,
Yeah, there's this guys out there though, like Dan Swartz, the little guy that came out City Slickers there. His hand's tiny, but he has an excellent top roll. And see, his pronation's solid. His wrist and pronation are solid. And like Travis Bajan, he didn't have a super heavyweight hand either, like as far as size, but
yeah.
his ability to just grip and high knuckle and just, it didn't matter, right?
What they have that I don't is rise. I'm still working
The
on the
rise, yeah.
riser. I just don't. My most even people who are like, for instance, who can't even budge me in a hook. If I try to top roll them, I always get my rise dumped. It's a weakness of mine that I'm working on, and it's come up a lot. Actually, I think I found a formula that's starting to move the needle up because the numbers have been going up fast for finally after years of
It's a tough
pushing
one.
into this.
That's a tough one to get strong though. Yeah,
It is.
it causes a lot of pain, right? Like you can get a lot of pain in like your brachialis area when you're doing a lot of rise.
See, that's the key. I found out how to do it. Well, I not found out. So the person I'm training with now is Lachlan.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he
Okay.
gave me this tip, and he told me if you do this, I mean, I'll tell you in private later, but
Oh, you
try
better.
this when you do rise and see how it goes. And I tried it, and all that pain and all the amount of volume I can put through it is so much higher now that yeah, it's really working.
Nice, nice. Yeah, rise is very important, right? Because anytime you're not going like this, the more rise you have, the better, right? Good
Yeah.
back pressure, a lot of rise. You're just gonna pull them to your side. You're gonna stretch. You're gonna get out in their fingers. Really easy to get in their fingers when you have good rise. And it's very important in a top roll. Good had to have good riser. Everyone thinks it's all about pronation. No, no. Like even when you start up, just start with your pronation active. But it's the rise, like on the hit. That's what does it, right? So if you're
That's it.
and then what happens if your rise is weak, it gets dumped like this, right? And just goes this way.
That's exactly what happens to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's very important. I train pronation rise were my two biggest ones I trained for the longest time. Now I'm doing supination, cupping, I'm doing it all. But yeah, when I first started, I just said, well, if I have a good top roll, I'll hopefully do good. So it worked until it didn't, right? So and I train those other areas as well. So
Is there one movement that you feel like is translating for you to the table the most right now?
my main movement, honestly, is side pressure. Now,
So you
even
actively
though
train side pressure outside of arm wrestling?
yeah, oh yeah. No, no, I definitely do. Yeah, I do a lot of side pressure stuff. Side pressure, when I have all my hand, or even if I don't have all my faculties, but I have my pronation, I can at any time, I feel like I can just drive sideways and like hard, right? And because I'll use it instinctively in all my matches, I train it really hard, right? Because I know in a match, if I have anything that I feel I can drive with, I'm driving this way first most of the time, right? But even if it's not right to the sideways, it's still sideways, but maybe I'll drag it to the back. Well, I'll go to the path of the least resistance, but it's a side pressure movement. And it's kind of my main movement, no matter if I'm going inside, outside. My side pressure is kind of like my main strength, I'd have to say. Yeah, by far. Yeah. Just the ability to just go sideways at all times. And I got that because my favorite arm wrestler was Todd Hutchings. So even though I don't pull like Todd Hutchings, I kind of do, because a lot of people think Todd Hutchings is an inside puller. He's kind of an inside puller. He's more of you're not cracking my pronation and I'm going sideways. And that's kind of how I base my arm wrestling. So even though it ends up being a top roll or I finish with a top roll, it's always side pressure that you'll see me attempt. Like even when I pulled Chuck, it was like just wanted to go sideways with him. Basically all I wanted to do. It wasn't a top roll. It's just me saying my hand's stronger than yours and I'm going to go with the pad. Like, I don't know what it is. It's an instinctive thing, but I think if you have a lot of side pressure, I don't think you're going to do pretty good. Like, so.
Absolutely. Yeah. Chuck and I were actually going back and forth at it because I've been trying to get a match with him. So
Yeah,
finally, I kind of egged him on and that he was like, okay, we're going to go.
that's
And I know
cool.
he has a match coming up in February 15th. So he's
Yeah,
still
against a
pretty close
killer.
out.
Against a
Uh,
killer. Yeah.
yeah. So we'll see how that goes. He's been last year, like that loss to you, and then he took another loss.
Yeah.
It really got to him.
Tim
And
Talmadge. Yeah.
huh?
Tim Talmadge, I think, right
Yeah.
after. Yeah.
And it really lit a fire. And now he's actually, he's never been a guy who ever trained. He just,
That's what I was going
like
to
his
say. He
jaw
needs to
made him
train,
strong.
not just pull. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So now he's training and he's
Oh,
coming to practices and stuff. So
that's
we might
good.
see a new Chuck.
That's cool. You know what? He is strong. I know in our match it just looked like I was just too strong. But like when he hit
Yeah.
hard. Like he goes sideways as hard as he can. Like
Yep.
as hard as he can. Yeah.
And
But if you
his hand
weather
is pretty
that,
rock solid.
his hand was solid. Like my hand, I made it a point. I took it kind of personally. I like Chuck. He's a really good dude too. So, big kudos, Chuck, buddy, if you see this. But
Oh, he'll see it.
he fired me up because and I said this story a few other times, but it was just so funny because I was like, this guy's such a nice guy. How do I was like nervous. I'm like, I don't have no fire. I wasn't pumped up. Go upstairs and he looks at me. He goes, hey, dude, I just want you to know, dude, there's levels of this shit, man. I'm going to smash you, dude. And he was, he said something like that.
That's Chuck.
It was something like that, right? But he was nice. He was trying to be nice still at the same time. But I was like, you fucker, I'm going to get you. Pardon my language. But yeah.
No, you're good on the language.
Yeah. And then sure enough, it was just what I needed to, right? Because I was thinking, how, this guy's such a good guy. How am I going to get fired up? He gave me just enough, so.
Oh, on match day, he'll give you what you need to get fired up because
he gave me
changes
just that
his personality.
little bit. Yeah,
He
it was
changes
just
his personality.
that last minute, little stick he did. It was enough to say, okay,
That's how he gets himself fired up.
Yeah, I know. He fired me up though. It was great. And when I get fired up, watch out. Yeah, yeah. When I'm fired up, all that strength comes out. So yeah, that was good. I'm glad I had that match. I'm glad I met him. He's a good dude. So
yeah, no, he's a really good dude.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that he's coming to pride because that's going to help raise the level of our club more too. Because he pulls, there's no one else in our area that pulls anywhere near like him with all just said just pure side pressure.
He's got a lot of side pressure.
But one match I'm really excited about, and that's close to home for you, is Miles and Jared.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
right?
Because I told everyone because people don't know Jared, so they just kind of look at him and they kind of judge him based off his appearance. I was like, he was probably the second or third strongest right hand there, in my opinion.
He was.
He's way higher because everyone was just like, people were under the impression that Dakota's ranked a lot higher than him. I'm like, based on what I felt, I think Jared would run through Dakota. That's no offense to Dakota.
No. Our rank, you can't go by our ranking system anyway. But Jared is levels ahead of Dakota.
Yeah, Jared is. I told Miles, we've had conversations about it. It's not going to be.
I know.
Don't let his weight fool you. It's going to be that's because of how strong my strength background is. Like my shoulders, my chest, my back is so strong. Even in matches that I have zero chance of winning, I can usually at least get in it or stop them or do something, But that was the one and only match where I've ever felt completely
helpless.
I didn't have anywhere to go, nothing. People talk about, Ty's level, but I was getting stops on Ty, but I felt completely helpless against Jared,
Oh, I know. Well, see, Jared, he's kind of my son-in-law now.
Yeah.
Which is
congratulations on the grandbaby, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I'm pretty proud. I'm pretty happy. But I met Jared and his brother. He has a big brother, a super heavyweight, strong dude. He arm wrestles too. We're gonna get him a match eventually too. But I met them and I was amazed at how technical Jared was, right? Mm-hmm. So me and Jared, we started being training partners. And this is before he met my daughter.
Yeah.
Me and Jared trained a lot. Like I had the power and the strength, and then he was learning that from me, how to apply power. And I was learning the technical end, pulling him all the time. Now see, Jared, if I just pull, he's tricky. He gives me problems. I'm a 300-pound guy. He gives
Yeah.
me problems. When I really want to, I clamp down and I pin him. But that's just to show him who's boss. But other than that, like I have troubles with him. And he's pulled supers here and given them. He pulled Josh DeVoe. He's one of our top ranked super heavyweights in Alberta. He stepped in last minute at 185 pounds and he almost turned the match around. He lost 3-1, but like it was just a barn burner. And he lost because he fouled. He had the other guy. He's done. Josh's arm was done. Yeah, and Jared just made a mistake and fouled. But yeah, he actually almost won I think Josh is ranked 4th or 6th in Alberta. 4th, I think, in Alberta. Anyway, he's high up in Alberta. And Jared pulled supers and gave him a go and almost turned that match around.
All the matches I see him post are against giant dudes. So.
Giants. Travis Robertson. You remember Travis Robertson?
I remember that match.
He pulled him left-handed and beat him in a hook. It went into a hook, and he ripped through Travis. And like, this is what I'm saying. Miles cannot take Jared lightly because he is one of the most technical pullers, and his hand is so good. Like, he can block everything. He can take – he's a power – there's power takers and there's power givers. Jared is a power taker. Yeah. He will take it all. He'll make you feel like you have no power.
What you said earlier is the biggest mistake. I feel like if I could do it again, I don't think my level was high enough anyway at that time to do anything. But if I could run it back, like I would have gripped lower and just, like you said, just try to clamp down as hard as possible and just try to keep his pronation out of there. Because he, like you said, I just felt, I was so concerned about keeping my knuckle high because I was like, why wouldn't I keep my knuckle high if he has his wrist dumped like that?
Yeah,
and
but
I'm like, no, that was a mistake. That was
different.
Mistake.
And he does things unorthodox. His pulling style is very weird. You'll never pull anybody and say, oh, you pull like Jared, frame it. You're not going to ever get it. Like when you pull Jared, it's weird. Like it's a weird thing,
to this day, I've not felt anything like how it felt to pull Jared. And so whenever anyone asks me, I give him lots of credit and I always put him up there. And people are like, oh, we have this guy in Montana named Declan. He's really elusive. It's really hard to get a hold of him. And I don't know if he'll ever do a super match, but I'm saying that by far and away,
Yeah, I think he has one coming up. Somebody named Declan L something or.
Well, they offered it to him, but he hasn't accepted it.
Oh, okay. That's my bad. Yeah.
And when he'll show up like once every couple months. The first practice he shows up, he feels mortal. Then he shows up for a second practice and he's, equal or beating everybody. And the third practice, you can't touch him. Like he's just, there's just he just freight trains through you. And so when he's at that point where he's coming in consistently, in my opinion, barring a healthy Ben Brooks, there's not a right hand like even Joe, I think he would beat Joe right now. Maybe not Leif. That's a tall order.
That guy's good. We almost had a match confirmed, but he couldn't take it.
Yeah, I told him Jared, and they were just like, oh, and maybe Dakota. And I'm like, no. And again, it's not to take anything away. I think really in my head that would be closer.
Jared good. Yeah, no, Jared's there's levels, right? And Dakota he'll get there, but he'll never be the same puller as Jared anyway. Jared is just a unique individual. Like he's he's
been pulling a long time, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, well, like 6 years now, I think. 6 years. But I mean, he's in the Red Deer Club. Like we're not your normal club, man. Like we're not your normal club. We have Matt he's kind of our mentor, but you have Caleb Free. No one even knows Caleb yet. Wait till Caleb comes. Caleb is a freight train. I'm telling you, this guy is.
Is he a super?
Yeah, but like put it this way, I don't have a chance against him right now. You know what I mean? Okay. Not even close. You know what I mean? And we got Hugh Nutbrown. If he gets his shit worked out and he can start traveling, that guy that beat me in the super match, he's only 235 pounds.
Okay.
And he whooped me in that super match. Like, like he made me look silly.
So he's like a 240.
I think he competes really? 220. Like he loses weight and competes 220 when he competes, like in tournament format. But he's like, I think he went to nationals. I think he won left hand. I think he's a Canadian national left, or that might have been provincials. I'm not sure, but he's really good anyway. We got Sean Crowther. He just cracked he's the guy that I train with a lot now, and I look up to him. He's kind of like my mentor, kind of. He just cracked the top 20 in North America. He beat Don Underwood 2 months ago. So that's big, right? Like,
Yeah, Don is no joke. Like he might not be like as active as he used to be, but he's
yeah,
just
but and he's training a lot
he's still
now.
a very high level.
Yeah. He used to be one of the best in the world at one time, right? So
Yeah, yeah, he
I
was
think he
top 10. I
was
think he
considered.
won worlds before.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Multiple
No, he's
times.
no joke, man. So Sean just recently beat him. I don't know. The thing is, we got so many names. We got the light guys too, like Zach. Zach is gonna be, I'd say in the next 2 years, he makes the top 20 in North America for sure.
Oh
Like
yeah.
most definitely. Oh
Hmm.
yeah. Like he lost to Garrett Tupper or whatever his name was.
Yeah, the
But
Garrett surprised me. That was
yeah,
good.
he's like seventh now. He just moved up to like seventh in North America. So, and Zach, you know what? It was just a strength gap. There was a strength, like a physical strength gap
The
there.
size was really
Yeah,
noticeably different.
yeah, exactly. Like Zach, he pulls bigger guys too, but that Garrett was an exception. He really good.
But like when there's also talent there, that's when weight starts mattering, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and we got some silent killers too that hardly compete that I pull, and I'm just like, you are a freight train. Like our whole club is killers. Like that's why I started calling us the Red Deer Killers, because we're all killers. Like, like we're only getting better. And when you have a group of guys with that much diversity too, like we all pull different styles, it's crazy what you can do, right? You have a big club. We get 15 to 20 people at most practices every time, sometimes more. And we get people from other clubs come every week to the practice as well. So it's, yeah,
We're
you get a
starting to
lot
get
of,
there size wise, but our problem is like a lot of our top, we're all around the same level.
yeah.
You know, we don't have like a
You just
standout.
find things out yourself. Yeah.
So it's
Makes
really
sense.
hard to know if you're progressing or you're just keeping up, or maybe you guys aren't, you know?
Well, I got one point. So remember when I was down when you pulled, Jake Convert, Jake Covert.
Covert, yeah. Hmm.
Yes, I like that guy. He's a nice guy.
Oh yeah, one of the
We were,
best dudes.
and he ended up losing his match, but I don't think he should have lost. And the thing is I talked to him because they work so much, they focus so much on what's going on upside on top of the table, but he never looks down at his foot positioning. You know what I mean? Every time he would try to drive, he just had his leg in the way and he blocked himself from being able to go sideways. And I really talked to him. I said, do you ever think about your foot positioning, like when you're at the table? Not really. I'm like, he goes, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, how do you set your feet up? Like, if you're going to top roll, what's your position? If you're going to hook, what's your position? He's like, I just use one position or whatever. I'm like, no, man. Like, you know what I mean? Your footing means a lot. You want to create a path, a direction to flow to. And you definitely don't want to be blocking yourself with your leg, right? So,
Yeah, I've done that
like,
before. I remember my very first tournament, my leg got in the way. I'm like, what the heck?
yeah, what's going on? Why can't I go down? Yes, exactly. And it's little intricacies like that where when Matt pulls us at the table, he goes, fix your legs, And then if I'm pulling him, he'll go, your hip, because I like to separate from the table. Well, Matt will correct that. No, do it right. Keep that hip. I want you driving that table with your hip when you're going. Right? I don't want you pulling away, right? And Matt always stays on us, right? But we have that level to just point it out, like, hey, you know what I mean? And that's kind of what you're lacking. But I think if you think about these things, you can still incorporate them in your practice, right? Like
Figuring
even
it
us
out.
talking, even us talking now, next practice, you might go, oh yeah, I was talking about that with Brian. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then fucking
100%.
yeah. So I think that's why even people say, oh, you talk too much. They call it, what do they call it? I don't know. They make fun of bro talk or whatever. I'm like,
Oh yeah,
bro talk helps because,
it does.
sometimes you'll say something that intrigues me that I'll think about next time. I'll go, oh, yeah, I was talking to Andrew. Oh, yeah, we were talking about this. Oh, and then, you know what I mean? Then it clicks, right? And sometimes our levels on the table are little conversations that we'll have because something you said, all of a sudden, for some reason, it clicked at that moment when I'm on the table. You know what I'm saying? I've had these things. I don't know if you have, but I've had these little things where, yeah, like when I was told it or heard it, I didn't think nothing of it. But now, all of a sudden, it clicked. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what Buddy was talking about. You know what I mean? So, I think it's all good. And I think
All it takes sometimes is hearing it the right way.
Yeah, exactly.
Hearing the same thing said, just in a way that works for you.
Yeah. I agree. Totally.
And one thing I definitely want to touch on because it's near and dear to my heart that I've noticed in the background of your podcast and everything like that is you're definitely a weeb like me.
No, yeah, yeah,
Anime fan.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Or is
Yeah,
it part of like collectible stuff that you've like just picked up from the bartering, or is it just like a personal passion thing?
just a personal thing. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
No, it's a big. It's been something I've been doing since I was 8. I
Really?
remember when Dragon Ball first came on
Seen every
cable.
episode. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I remember Teletoon. I think I had it at one time here. But yeah, I watched the first Dragon Ball when he was young and he had his tail and he'd fly around
Yeah.
on Nimbus. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Remember Nimbus Cloud? Yeah, and I watched every episode. I've actually watched the whole Dragon Ball Z series. I think there was like 300 and something episodes. I watched that twice. I watched
Mhm.
Dragon Ball GT like 4 times.
Oh, did you like
I watched
GT?
even the new stuff. I didn't. GT was the worst one, but I still watched
Yeah.
it. I still
I couldn't
watched
get
it.
through it. I tried a couple times, but I couldn't do it.
I liked it when he went against the Shenron when the balls
Yeah.
split apart and then there
Mhm.
was the 7 dragons. That was cool when you had to fight each one of them. Yeah, I liked that one. But other than that, I didn't care for Chi Chi too much. No, but
Oh yeah.
no, I
I've
do.
always
I
been
love it.
I think Goku's a big part of the reason why I was so interested in strength and working out, from a young age as it was, because it's like, man, look at this guy. Like, I want to be like that.
That's me too.
Mhm.
Actually, it's funny because I share that with you because I always make jokes about every time I battle, I get stronger. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Because the Saiyan blood.
This isn't
You
even
know
my final form.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's not even close. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's how I think, right? Because every time
Yeah.
we arm wrestle, we do get a little bit out of it. Something
Mhm.
sticks every time. Something makes us a little better, or our tendons a little stronger all the time. Even when we think we're injured, once we heal, it's stronger than it was before we got injured, right?
And
So,
are you a person that thinks like it's important to do something every day, or do you think like having rest periods is really important?
well, I can break it down real quick to you. So basically, I just had this conversation with Clifton Erickson recently because
Mhm.
he's doing a deload for his match with John Therian, and I believe that I don't like any rest days myself. I will take let's say I have a super match in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks out, I won't go to practice anymore because I just don't want to risk the biscuit. Right? I just stay away from
Exactly. Yeah.
table time. I work out hard in the gym till 7 days out.
Mhm.
At 7 days out, I take it down considerably, down to, I would say, a little more than blood flow, but close to blood flow. And then by the Wednesday before, I go to just bands. And then I do just bands until Thursday night. Friday, I do nothing. And then Saturday, I usually compete. And that's my deload. That's what I do. But
One thing.
I do it for because psychologically, I
Mhm.
tried the other way where you just do nothing for a couple, you know what I mean? Almost nothing. And I felt weak and I didn't feel good. And I always was never mentally there. But if I'm like Hutchings, because Hutchings says, if I'm doing a PR every Wednesday, why would I skip that week? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm on the same camp as Todd Hutchings that way. I think that we can gain little bits and we can and condition ourselves even in the last 2 weeks before a match. So
Mhm.
I stay pretty active right up until about a week out. And then it's like high rep stuff. And then one full day of rest. And then the day of I compete. And that's what I do.
One thing I recommend, because I do almost the exact same thing, and this helped me immensely in powerlifting. So I applied it to arm wrestling to see if it would help. Thursday, so like if we're competing on Saturday, on Thursday, before I pick 3 movements that I think translate to my arm wrestling the most, and I kind of hit like a 7 out of 10 single on them
Okay. Yep.
just to kind of like prime my body and make sure my nervous system's kind
Yep.
of
No, I get it.
expecting it.
I get it.
And
'Cause
for me, I find that that's really helpful is just
yep.
doing something like a little bit, not
Yep.
hard enough to cause damage, but still like you can't just like,
I know
skate
what you're
through it.
saying. Well, but see, a lot of people don't realize about our central nervous systems. It's
Mhm.
very important that you have that in check and you want it to be a line up to the day of competition. Because I've had competitions where I've done it perfect and I'm banging. I feel as strong as I can be. And then I've missed the biscuit or I've shocked my nervous system somehow and it's not there. Like it
Yeah.
just doesn't there. It's not there. And I can't, I'm only capable of 80% of my max and that's all I can do. And so I do stress that. Actually, a lot of guys been taking right and left arm matches lately, and some guys were under well, what they would think, oh, I'll pull right and then I'll pull left like 2 hours later. I'm like, no, 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 right? Matt did that and he lost against
Yeah.
Brad Grundy, right? And I noticed that he put so much against Adam Wilmot, or was that his name? Or no? Trying to think of, I think that's who he pulled. He pulled a Wilmot guy. Anyway, I think that was his name. Or no, Brock something. William Brock or something Brock.
Those don't
Anyway,
sound familiar to
yeah,
me.
it was the same day he lost to Grundy, though.
I remember that. I remember that loss to Grundy.
Yeah,
But
so he pulled left against him and had a banger. But then he had too much time for his central nervous system to just go to shit. Then when he went up against Brad, he felt like he was
couldn't turn on.
No, he had no strength. And then who was it? Zach ended up getting a chance to pull 2 arms, and I said no, pull him back to back. And it was the best thing because his central nervous system was firing on all cylinders. And even though he pulled left, he won pretty easily. He went right to the right, and he was even stronger because now, I mean, all those endorphins are going, everything else. I don't think that you should take a long break. So if you pull both arms, you should say, listen, okay, I'll pull both arms, but I'm not pulling right and then 3 hours later or 2 hours later pulling left because I think it's actually bad. I haven't seen good results in that anyway.
I think you're spot on with that.
Yeah, because I mean the central nervous system. So, and with you doing powerlifting, you know that it's so important, right? You have to prep your central nervous system just right to hit PRs. To you know what I mean? Or
the last week before the deload, you're feeling completely beat up and like you're questioning everything because you feel so weak and all your numbers aren't working. And then that's where your coach really comes in and like, nope, just trust the process. And then you let your body reset and you get that central nervous system kick. And then you go in and you hit PRs, and it's just, it feels great.
I used to love strongman too. I dabbled in my early 20s. I really loved it. Just work. I didn't have enough time to do it. And I still watch strongman. I watch all the events to this day, local and all the big ones too, of course.
Yeah, I love watching strongman. I'm really excited about Brian Shaw. But before we close out here for the night, I actually wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about Through the Fingers. If there's anything you want to say about that, like why you guys started it, what your kind of mission is for it, and where you'd like it to go.
Yeah, Through the Fingers started with me and Zach, and actually me, Zach, and Caleb originally. We talked about starting something that we could have for the pullers, not really for ourselves, but just a platform that, you don't have to be Matt Mask or whoever to be heard, to get your voice out there or to advertise yourself or, even just talk arm wrestling because we love arm wrestling, right?
Yes.
So we built it basically for the community. Like, that's why we did it. And we love it, right? We love talking. I can talk arm wrestling all day, all night. Like, I'm so passionate about it, right? So, we said, well, why don't we do a podcast? And everyone's like, well, there's a lot, well, who cares? Let's do it for us and the community. Like, who cares?
Well, no, I love it. I tune in all the time. It's my background a lot, when I'm working out in the evenings. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
If you see me down there as ArmFanatic, that's who I am.
Yeah, I know who you are now. I didn't for a while. I used to not know, but then I know. You told me. I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense. So our goals really with it now are to get monetized, not really to make revenue, but to be able to, you just don't get to do much if you're not monetized. I would like to start running polls, and I would like getting more involved that way. But you don't really unlock those features until you get monetized, right? So
the fastest track to getting to that point from all the research I did is you put out your video, your long form video, then you pull a few clips from it, make those shorts, then link those shorts to your full podcast, your video. And that's what drives the traffic. And
we just started learning that. Yeah, because we just started focusing. We just started saying, Derek Smith gets 45, 50 people in his chat every day, every time he goes on. And I'm like, he's got 14,000 subs. And I'm like, we got 300 subs and we got 25 people in the chat right now. So I'm thinking, like, we must be doing something right. Like, what I mean?
Think so.
Like, I think so. You know what I mean? But we just have to get our reach out.
I think you guys aren't trying to be, you're not trying to fit into like, and all credit, like I like Derek Smith's a good guy, but I think you're not trying to be the typical YouTube thing. You're not trying to talk in a certain way. You're not trying to, like, oh, hey guys, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just very casual. It's very down to earth because arm wrestling's blue collar. Like, it doesn't matter what state it is or whatever. That's the people who are into it. That's the people who like it, And if you're trying to be something like that, I just don't think you're going to have as much success. And I think that's where you guys, it just feels very chill and casual.
Yeah, I think we see through the phoniness too, right? And that's another thing too. A lot of guys, they don't want to come on because they're like, oh, I don't know about being on camera, whatever. I'm like, you know what? Just come on and just act like you're talking, shooting a shit with us. Don't think about the camera. Just look at, because I used to get nervous. I had a hard time when I started, right? I remember
the first couple minutes of when I hit record, yeah, it feels really. I'm like,
yeah. But once we get talking, you know what I mean? It's over, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we
oh,
just
for
get
sure.
lost in our talk, right? And I think that's what really captured, like Joe Rogan, he didn't do any of that shit. He just talked and he just talked. And that's what it is. It's like just people talking and being themselves. And I think arm wrestling, you'd have a hard time being a character
Yeah.
on a podcast because the thing is we read we see when someone's genuine, right? So
That's one of the things I really love, and that's why I'd like to eventually get to something kind of like how Joe Rogan does it, because there's nothing baked. Like the screen will go from black, and you just see them, and all of a sudden Joe's just like, "So, what do you think about aliens?" And like,
yeah,
there's no like,
yeah. There's
it's
no
just
nothing. Yeah, I know, but like even like I don't have a filter. I mean, my co-hosts, they're like, Brian, come on now, don't go. You know what I mean? Don't go there because I get passionate. I forget I'm on camera too, and I say shit. I actually had the podcast. They actually stopped the feed because I talked about something in the podcast, and I was like, shit, okay, I better watch now, right? But on the most part, it's unfiltered. You're getting genuine. You're gonna get what we feel, right? There's no, like everything I say is how I feel. So, and I think that's what people want anyway. And, we can relate to that, right? And it makes us want to watch it because we know that it's genuine, And as far as, going forward, if we do make money, we talked about just putting it and holding through the finger events and using it to sponsor and using it as sponsorship money, like maybe with Red Leg and maybe, even Josh Wilson, any of
that's
right?
awesome.
Any promotion. Yeah, because we've sponsored a couple of events now and it's kind of been me paying for it right now because it's just we're not making any money yet. But when we do, we're going to be giving it right back to the community because like we're sponsors for the February 14th. So actually I'm proud to be sponsor of Gelder's Productions. It's another thing. I really, really appreciate the production that they have. Like, I don't know
It's
what people,
incredible.
I'm
Arm
hoping
wrestling
that,
doesn't have it. Yeah.
no, I'm hoping, listen, I'm telling you right now, I know, all these other they have the big names and everything, but this production quality is something special. Like,
It is.
I think I got into this sport. I know I'm dragging the interview now, but I got into the sport watching WAL. I was on Game Arms and shit like that. But WAL, I just loved it. And I didn't arm wrestle. I wasn't an arm wrestler. And I would sit there and it'd be like Devon versus Jerry or, like Chings versus Matt Mask and, even some of the other, Justin Bishop versus Sam Smith. Like, I would watch and I'd be like, wow, and they throw 10,000 on the table. And it was like, and I wasn't even an arm wrestler. So that's what I think that M Spot, like Red Leg Studios and that, I think that's what they're going to offer. They're going to offer we're going to get a bigger viewing and more people into the sport because of the entertainment quality. And I think that's one thing a lot of these other promotions, they're missing it. They're missing it because even East versus West, for how good it is, sometimes I can't make it through 7 hours of watching the matches. I have to go back and watch them individually. You know what I mean?
It's too much. Too much.
Too much. Yeah. So if they can buckle it down and put a really good production into it, and make it feel like, when you were there, we walk out, we got the cameras in front of it, like
It's awesome.
It's awesome.
You can't not get pumped up for that shit.
No way.
Yeah.
It's like, and I even told people, I'm like, that's payment in itself. Like my match with Chuck,
yes.
if I could do a digital image or a digital copy of my match with Chuck and frame it on the wall, I would.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, because it's just, So anyway, I'm really pumped for what's coming in Montana. And I think that you're going to see it's going to get really good. And like, as far as Alberta and Montana, we're only going to come more and more close. Like, we're brothers now. Like, we're joint. Like, we're a few hours away, man. Like, it's over.
Yeah, we're not far at all. Like, it takes me the same. Great Falls is about 4 hours for me. So it's not, that much dissimilar to what you guys kind of have to do.
I do 4.5 hours. Yeah. So
yeah, it's Montana's big. People underestimate how big Montana is, but
big too.
Yeah, for sure. But no, there's I have a lot of thoughts about like what you're saying, the WAL and like the way it's of my opinion, like, and I really appreciate what obviously, people say enough, but like what it's really important for Engen Terzi that a lot of the people who deserve attention get time on that big stage.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think that the less known people should be on a Friday show, maybe like the first, 6 or 8 matches, and have that for free on YouTube just to get it out there and say, hey, tomorrow, these are the big matches coming on. for like the grand finals or the premier event or whatever. So you have to buy your pay-per-view. And then that way it'd be like a 3-hour show.
Yeah.
And that's what people
That
are
would bring
conditioned to for sports, you know?
Yeah, that would do more for our sport than he realizes. That would bring in viewers from the strength community, from other communities, from influencer communities. All these other communities would bring them all in, right?
And it won't drop the number. The people who are going to buy the pay-per-views are buying
They're
it
gonna
for the
buy
premier
them.
matches anyway.
That's
So
right.
having the first 8 or 9 undercard matches, like kind of like how boxing does it, you know?
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
that's what they do. They put it for free on YouTube and then they switch it over to the pay-per-view stream.
Exactly.
And that drives people. That drives those subscriptions or the pay-per-view purchases, you know?
Yep. Yep. Well, also too, like I was saying in last night's podcast, on my podcast, if it's about the matches, it's about the making the right matches, you know, like putting the right, don't look at, oh, it's got to be RVJ or it's got to be the, you know, the big Ron, but it has to be the big names. No, it's about, if you put the right two people together, that could be more
Magic.
entertaining than the main event at East versus West.
Who would have thought that one of the greatest matches of all time would be Dave Chafee versus Vitaly Letin?
Yeah, exactly.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, that's a good example, right? No one would have thought that, but that was definitely one of the greatest of all time.
There's bleeding on the table.
There's a match, if you haven't seen it, Arms God, I think it was Arm Gods 2. It was Matt Smith versus Connor Sale or something like that. One of the best matches I ever seen.
Well, think of, are you a fan of the UFC?
Oh yeah.
What was the UFC blow-up moment? Forrest Griffin versus
Stephen Bonner.
Stephen Bonner won.
Yeah.
Like that was just
That blew it up.
That blew it up.
Yep.
That's all it takes. Yeah.
That made UFC. Honestly, that's what made UFC.
That is 100%. People forget it's those little things like that. And, you know, that's why people like Gelder are so, you know, people have an eye for that type of stuff.
Yeah. Well, look at Gelder. He's not even from arm wrestling, but he sees it. Gelder sees the possibility. What he sees, I trust in him because I know arm wrestling. I know passion. And like, I help out Gelder in any way I can. Like, we talk a lot and I'll always help him because you know what? We know sport. We know arm wrestling. We know the guys, but Gelder knows entertainment and he knows production. Right. So, you know what? With the right balance, and if he just keeps his circle good, it's going to be amazing. Like, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I'm really excited that all this is happening in Montana. That's just
me too. Because it's close enough that I could drive to it. You know, whether I'm reffing, I'm going to be so involved. I'm either going to be commentating, reffing, or competing. So I'm going to be almost every event.
Yeah. You're going to be busy for sure.
Yeah. I think there's 12, or you got to do 12 or something like that in a short period of time.
And one thing I wanted to ask you about, because you're the first super heavy I've had on the show, because this is maybe some people see it as a controversial take, but I think it's just a logical take. Like, it's just wild to me that in 2025 now we're in, that if you're over 240 pounds, you're considered a super heavyweight. In my opinion, there should be a 275 at a minimum, and probably a 308 as well.
I agree. You know, like we just started recently enforcing the 242 class in a lot of the events here in North America, but it used to be 200 and over, believe it or not, at one time, like all the time. So I think it's ridiculous. We're too big now, right? We're too big. Even me, like my second super match, the guy was 420 pounds. But like, you know, I did win, but oh man, boy, that was a brutal one. Best of 7, I was dying. But
there are differences in extreme weights. I think there's differences.
I think there is too. Well, sometimes I did for a long time, but then Todd Hutchings. So Todd Hutchings always says the strength gap isn't as big as you think, right? Like once you get over 190, 200, believe it or not, it's stretched out more than you realize. And you know what? I would argue it, but then look at Todd Hutchings. He competed supers for how long? Because at like 210 pounds, like, you know what I mean?
But the sport's growing and the level's raising. So now we're going to start seeing the talent pool increasing. We're going to start seeing those differences where I think I don't think it really, because Prime Brzank coming in today, I think he'd be, I don't think he'd be able to compete in the super heavyweights, you know?
Yeah, not in the top.
Not in the top 10.
I agree. Yeah, because
like he'd be like a Todd Hutchings, you know? I see probably, I would make Prime Brzank might be like where Todd Hutchings is now, you know? Like their levels might be very similar in terms of their primes, you know?
I would say Hutchings falls in the top 15, maybe though in the supers. Like he might
Yeah,
because
yeah, I think a lot of the special guys, especially over 200 pounds, can compete
yeah.
within the top 20, but and not in the top 10,
No,
in
I
my
know
opinion.
yeah.
Like, I think when you get to someone like Kurdecha, I think it's just too much.
Well, you
You
had
know?
Rust. Remember Rustum? He was like 195, 200 competing against supers. He was in the top. He was in the top. Like, like that's what I mean. Like, I do
Mhm.
agree though. Like, I agree with what you're saying, but then there's always those outliers, right? That say
Yeah,
it
there's
can be
always an
close.
exception.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But these are special individuals too,
Like,
right?
people forget that 17 or 2018, actually, it might have been after 2018, Angerbayev stopped Levon. He got a more, like, people always talk about Laletin, but Angerbayev got a longer and a stickier stop
He did. He did. It was like
than
wow,
Laletin
the
got.
low hand. It was like a
Yeah,
low hand flop roll. Yeah, I remember it. See, actually, he stopped him the same way Vitali stopped. It was almost the same movement.
yeah.
If you were to take a still picture of both of them, it was almost the same spot in the same place, which is interesting because
Because as much of
Vitali,
an advantage as Levon's great big hand is, if you can get right out on those fingertips, then that's a longer lever. So now you have the advantage with it again into his big hand. And they were both able to sweep outwards enough and get into those fingers. Obviously Levon's just the biggest freak of nature we have
wow,
in arm wrestling, so he just was able to kind of like just this last first round with Devon, where even in that crazy, terrible, like the worst position you want to be in, he was just able to just stay calm and hold it. He eventually just kind of wrenched his way back in, and well, he fouled with the
there
press,
was
but
controversy. I think Levon fouled before Devon. Um, I do. I seen him come before Devon went into the straight arm position. Levon was way past that.
way over, yeah, and that's
Way
what the
over.
call ended up being, because I remember
Did they?
they
I thought
called
they
it.
gave it to Devon and called him for the King's move.
No, they
Yeah.
ended up calling for shoulder over center line because they went back
Oh,
and they
okay.
reviewed it because Devon's corner was like yelling out, whatever. And then so Devon had
Yeah.
him challenge it, and they ended up calling it against Levon for shoulder over
Oh,
center.
okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, initially they did call it for Devon.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Well, Devin, I mean, he's a love-hated guy,
Once you
right?
have a 400-pound man driving your pressing you, you're gonna think your elbow is gonna stay on the pad.
Listen, you know what? I met Devin personally, and
Mhm.
I will say something quickly about him. He's actually he's one of the most genuine, nicest guys I ever met. There was 100 people at that practice, and he pulled me on the table. Actually, there was an altercation because somebody I didn't like was there, and he was yelling, "Oh, Devin, get him to look at his hand," because I wasn't looking at my hand. I was just trying to move him if I could, because it's Devin, right? You want to just, oh, I moved him an inch, you know what I mean? But anyway, at the end, he took me aside, and he was like, "So how do you know Matt? Oh, where are you from?" We talked for 25 minutes,
Mhm.
and he was just interested with me,
Yeah,
and
I've heard
and
that. He'll
like
have a conversation with you. Yeah.
yeah, like he wanted to know how I started arm wrestling. He wanted to know how I knew Matt. He wanted to know, oh, you buddies? Yeah, I'm buddies with Matt. Oh, he wanted to know everything, right? And that's special because you would think Devin, he's got 170 people show up to pull him, you think his head would be swelled up. But no,
Yeah.
he actually was so humble and cared about me,
Yeah.
like, learning about me. So when I see his acts and like you know what, Devin's Devin and he knows how to hype. I mean, he brings in the most money in arm wrestling, but like person to person, if you ever meet him, he's one of the nicest guys. And he's my true hero in arm wrestling.
Yeah.
Honestly.
That's why I'll always tell everyone, like, my favorite arm wrestler is Hermes, because I love, like, to me he's like a perfect arm wrestler. But my favorite arm wrestling personality is Monster Michael Todd, because he's so genuine, and like for the same reasons, he actually cares. He'll go and meet with the fans. He wants to talk. He replies to if you comment
Everything.
or put
Everything.
something, you'll always
Yeah,
get some kind of reply.
I know.
So like to me, that just shows true dedication, and just like it's beyond just like, okay, I'm kind of popular, I'm gonna do it for the money, or like I do like the fans, but it's just like they're truly trying to do something here for sure.
Well, exactly. I know. And it means a lot. I mean, arm wrestling's kind of cool, man, because, I got into the sport as a fan and now I get to meet and pull and hang out with the people that I was a fan of. Like Matt Mask, I was such a fan. And if it wasn't for Matt, I probably wouldn't have got into arm wrestling, because I was sitting there. It was COVID, right? And of course, we were very strict here in Canada, right? So I'm like locked down, getting fat, not working, sitting in front of the computer, watching arm wrestling. And I watched the match with Matt and Devon. And then I started watching a lot of Matt's matches. And my wife said, oh, who's that? I'm like, oh, that's Matt Mask. I said, he's from Canada. She goes, where does he live? Apparently Alberta, Canada.
Yeah.
She's like, well, why don't you call him? I'm like, call him? What do you mean? Like, you know what I mean? And then I was like, I went on Messenger on Facebook. I was like, oh, I can message him. So I'm like, hey, man, I'm from Calgary. There was no club here at the time. The club here was shut down at the time. And I said, I really, I want arm wrestling. He goes, well, you're not going to get good, man, unless you practice. So why don't you come on out? Here's my address. Come Thursday night. And that's how my whole journey started. And it was like hook, line, sinker. Went to Matt's house, met everybody, felt the love. Like, they treated me like really good, like a brother. And I was just like, this is my home. And now it's my second home away from home. Arm wrestling is a part of me till the day I die.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I think it's completely taken me over, and the fact that I can do it forever, even just for fun, even if it's just showing up to practice every week, that's what I really love about it.
Yeah, I love our community. I know they're all good communities, but I think we have the most solid community you can have, arm wrestling. Like, out of all the people I've met and pulled, I only got like two. There's one guy I really don't like and another guy I don't care for really. But other than that, everybody's my brother and sister in arm wrestling. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm talking thousands of people to find somebody I don't like you.
Yeah.
Like, that's hard, right? Like, how many sports are like that, right? Like, I get treated like gold everywhere I go. I go to Montana, you guys treat me just like I was from Montana, because we arm wrestle, we're brothers. You know what I mean? And I just love that. You don't get that. I've been in other sports, and like, you get it a little bit, but there's still that, no, like, it's about me. You know what I mean? We're arm wrestling. When you're on the table, it's about you, but outside of actually competing, it's like we're all interested in each other. Like, we're like a mushroom growth. We're like a mycelium. We're just like a network. You know what I mean? And we all like make one thing. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's a great way to put it.
Close we are. Yeah, I know that's a weird way of putting it, probably, but
it makes sense. It makes sense. I know what you're getting at with that.
Yeah. We're just like, we're all connected. And it's a smaller world than we realize too. Because, I don't know how many people I would have never thought would meet watching arm wrestling. Now that I've been arm wrestling, it's like I'm friends with half of them, like actual friends, where I talk to them weekly. You know what I mean? And that's awesome. So, yeah. Definitely puts a smile on my face, this arm wrestling thing. So,
yeah, for sure. But, yeah, no, it was great having a conversation with you tonight. I think everyone got to know the judge very well.
Yeah.
We got into a lot of stuff. Is there anything you want to say or shout out anybody before we close out?
Well, I'm just going to shout out the whole community, man. Thanks for your support. And you know what? Let's just do great things 2025.
All right. Well, for everyone who's listening, thanks for tuning in. And I appreciate it if you could like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.
Definitely.